All right, so thankfully, most of us don't have a lot of exposure to the legal system, so we hear some of these things and we don't quite know what to make of them. So joining us this afternoon to give some context about these charges against the former president and to walk us through what is next in this case is former federal prosecutor Aaron Wiley. Thanks for being with us here this afternoon. I know that there's still some blanks left to be filled in here. We don't have all of the information from this indictment yet. But being a former prosecutor, you're hearing what's going on, you're seeing what's going on. What do you make of the prosecution's case at this point?
You don't really know a lot about the prosecutor's case at this point, because it's almost like an indictment should be a roadmap that tells you where you're going. In this case, they left out some important pieces of it, of the actual written document. At least there, when the prosecutor was speaking, he went ahead and said, hey, this is what it is. It's about campaign. It's about campaign finance. But that's not what's in the indictment. And here's the problem. There's two problems. One, that these are all misdemeanors that would have already lapsed, but for the fact that they're alleging that it was used to conceal another crime, which is in fact a federal crime. So it is a little bit of mental and legal gymnastics to get there. But having said that, if there is an appropriate or a good venue for prosecution, it is in Manhattan.
Where the former president isn't necessarily considered popular, at least if you look at election returns.
Absolutely, because generally you have to pay a lot to get polls. You don't have to pay a lot to get this poll because he already had an election and it was 80-20.
And that's where the jury pool is going to come from.
That is absolutely correct. And that is the reason why, in spite of all of the legal wrangling, that there is actually a path to victory for the prosecution. Because as I tell clients, that if a prosecutor, a judge, and potentially a jury agree, it's a crime until a higher court says something different.
Okay, so on the other table there in the courtroom, you have the defense. As you see things shaping up from what you've heard from the DA there, from what we have seen today regarding the indictment, what do you think the defense will do here? What's their best tact in getting through this?
Well, their tactics are going to be what Donald Trump always is, fire and brimstone. They're coming after them. They're going to make no bones about it. There's no secrets in the room that this is a political hit job. That's the only reason why you're talking about to me is because other prosecutors in your exact same position passed on this. In fact, when you first got in office, you passed on this, and people left your office in protest. So what changed? Could it have been that I announced that I was running for president? That's what's unsaid, and the rest of us will kind of quiver back. That guy's going to say that.
That's what's probably going to go down then.
That's what's going to go down. And in fact, it's also going to go down if they're going to, his lawyers have tried to tamp him back, but he's going to attack that judge. Because at the end of the day, that judge has heard other cases that were Trump-centered, and they're going to ask also for a venue change. They're going to say, we don't need to be here because of the reasons that you and I already discussed, and you've got this political, he's not going to be able to get rid of the prosecutor. That's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to get rid of the judge, but those motions will be filed. And they're asking, I believe, the government is asking for the case to begin in January of 2024, which we know that's campaign season. That's when you're supposed to be out stumping and taking on in your primary, taking on your challengers. They want him sitting in a courtroom.
And so if you can't take away the judge and you can't take away the prosecutor in this case, if you're the defense, you're trying to take away that third element you were talking about, which is that Manhattan jury, and get this thing moved elsewhere. What do you think the chances are of that, though? I
don't think the chances are good, because here's the government's argument. Where haven't they heard of you in this case? That's not likely to fly. Where are we going to find a good, we're not moving out of the state. We're not moving the state that you won. We're not doing that. So the likelihood of them succeeding there is probably not great.
Last thing before we let you go, you've been through this, you've built cases, you've brought indictments, et cetera, or you've dealt with all of this. How much work went into this day? This day's been anticipated for a long time.
There was a tremendous amount of work that went into this. It's not evidenced by the indictment. It looks kind of bony, for lack of a better word. Not a lot of meat on that.
You don't see the meat yet.
No, don't see the meat yet. But a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of resources have been spent both during this administration. What I mean by that is that the DA's administration and the prior DA's administration, because that's the DA that declined, and then this DA looked at it, first said no, then came back. So they've been working on this since day one.
Former federal prosecutor Aaron Wiley walking us through the developments of the day, which have been extraordinary. Thank you so much for doing this with us. It always helps to have perspective from people who've been there. We'll probably be calling you a lot more going forward as well. Thank you.